Radnor Township Board of Planning Commission. And it's our first Zoom effort. So far, things seem like they're going okay. So let us start first with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next item on the agenda is the minutes of the March 2nd, long time ago now, March 2nd, 2020 meeting. Does anybody have any additions, corrections, or anything else to add to the minutes from March 2020? Okay, I don't hear anything. Can I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Raise your hand so we can see. Okay, appears that it was approved unanimously. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the menu is item number 3, which is 147 Conestoga Road. It is a sewage facility planning module. We've seen these before. Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but all that's necessary is for me to sign it and send it back to you.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, well, I'll take care of that as soon as the meeting's over.
Thank you.
The next item is 108 West Wayne Avenue, a zoning hearing board appeal. George, are you here, ready to go forward with that?
Yes, good evening. George Brosman, representing the applicants. With me tonight are the principals of the owners of the property, Eli Kahn and Wade McDevitt, our engineer, Rob Lambert, and traffic engineer, Frank Tavani. We're here because we filed an application to the zoning hearing board seeking approval to add an office use to a new second floor of the old annex to the Wayne Post Office. And we also, office is not allowed on the first floor. So we're going to convert the first floor to an office use and add a second floor. The office would be allowed on the second floor. This is in the special use area, the Wayne Business Overlay District. And we also need some parking relief from the zoning hearing board as to the location and the number. I'm going to turn it over to Eli and Wade, and then we'll go from there.
So I've asked Ian on a message. Right now, the screen sharing's disabled. If he could enable it. Oh, there it goes. Perfect.
Hi, good evening. This is Wade McDevitt. Thanks for allowing us to be with you this evening, and more importantly, I hope everyone's safe and comfortable. Eli and I purchased this property back in October of last year. We were attracted to its central location in Wayne, as well as the architectural orientation of the property that we thought was a platform or backdrop for interesting design opportunities. We spent a good deal of time considering what the highest and best use for the property would be. Zoning oriented towards a retail use, but it is our strong belief that this location really is not suited for retail for a number of reasons. First of all, the West Wayne elevation has no reflective retail in that street. There's no precedent for retail along that street for the most part. And the South Wayne Avenue is set back from the road and is elevated from grade level, which are two challenges to the retail use as well. So we gave additional consideration for what uses would be best suited for this site and ultimately determined that office would be the highest and best use for this location. Another concern about retail is back when we were considering this, before we were in the current predicament that we're in with the pandemic, even then the retail environment was challenging at best. And we did not believe that adding 10,000 plus square feet of additional retail space to the local inventory would be in anyone's best interest. So office we felt was the highest and best use from a design perspective, as well as being complementary to the community in that it does not burden or place any demands on the evening and weekend parking, which is obviously an important infrastructural element of the downtown retail and food and beverage environment. And we also thought that it would bring a qualified daytime customer to the market that would then utilize the local amenities of the retail and F&B. I'm going to turn things over to Eli from here, who will walk you through the development plans and some of our needs and asks.
Thank you, Wade. Thank you, folks, and appreciate the opportunity to present this this evening. I should note that Wade and I have been involved in a number of these redevelopment projects in the region. The closest one is the old Waterloo Gardens property in Devon, which is now Devon Yard. And our next project in Devon will hopefully be the old Studebaker building across the street. So we're both local and know the market very well and look forward to the opportunity. As most of you know, the building is physically attached to the U.S. Post Office, the Wayne Post Office. I think most people out there figure the post office owned the building, but it was owned by a family who left it in a trust. The building's been vacant now for a little while. It was last used as a sorting facility for the post office, primarily an industrial use. It has a main building. Building has actually several additions on it. The main building was about 5,000 square feet. It was the square shape that fronts on. Rob, can you blow that up at all or no? You can kind of see by the roof line. You can see the parapet on the roof. Yeah, just there's the northern square there was the original building, and then the loading dock addition that you see from South Wayne Avenue was added on, and then the last addition was a drive-in door addition all the way to the southern part of the lot, which we'll see when we show you the street view of the existing buildings. The total building today is about 7,500 square feet. And our goal here is to create what the market really is calling an industrial chic office building. I've done a number of these. In fact, my office, which is in downtown Melbourne, is an industrial building. And it's very popular with financial planning firms, insurance companies, a lot of different folks. You get the authenticity of the original building. It's got high ceilings. It's got, unique brick facade. It's got large industrial windows, which would be replaced with modern insulated windows. The building's about 7,500 square feet, as I said. Our proposal would be to fill in the loading dock addition and make that more usable space. Use the southernmost addition to the building as a potential lobby atrium with a 2-story staircase and an elevator, and then turn the loading area, the asphalt area, into approximately 14 parking spaces. Our proposal actually does not increase impervious coverage at all. It actually decreases impervious coverage. We're not adding any footprint to the building, but we will be taking up some of the asphalt to create some green buffering. There'll also likely be a small rooftop terrace garden area between the first and second floor that'll bring some greenery into the facade of the building. From a zoning and use perspective, I think Wade hit it on the head in terms of what our analysis of the marketplace is. Walkability for office users is more important now than ever. I own a lot of suburban office buildings, traditional, office campuses, and I'm also developing, downtown office space in places like Westchester, where I've redeveloped the old courthouse, and actually I'm just finishing up a brand new building on Gay and Church Street in downtown. And the building I'm finishing right now is 100% leased before it's finished. In a market like we are in today, it's pretty incredible. it just shows you the strength of amenities to today's employees. Downtown Wayne is you know, the heartbeat of the Western, or of the main line's kind of small town retail, food and beverage scene. So the ability to bring a high quality office tenant to this location, so close to the main amenities, and also so close to the train station, as well as the bus route along Lancaster Avenue, is really important. The zoning, as you all know, talks about the central use area. The idea to really go higher here.
You're breaking up.
In fact, there's a.
Eli, hard to hear you.
I'm sorry. Is that a little bit better?
That's much better.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. The special use area of the existing zoning code suggests you could go to a 55-foot height limit or max, and get a much greater density of building. And I've done some of this work in Malvern and Westchester, and getting ready to do a project in Doylestown where we're tearing buildings down and going vertical in a much bigger density. This particular site just isn't big enough to support the concept that is detailed in the special use district. I think if the post office were in play and the building to the south of this site, it might get to a point where it's large enough to consider the uses and the type of development the special use district warrants. Even then, it's still not really a big site. We felt like just adding a single floor to the building kept it in scale with pretty much everything around it. The building is not in great shape right now. And simply, we want to take an old vacant industrial building and it's in the heart of Wayne and turn it into a cool industrial style office building. Any questions?
I don't know if you want to walk through, Eli, the next few slides.
Yep. Let's do that. So this is the view looking kind of east on West Wayne Avenue. Obviously, the library is on your right. This is the original part of the building, the first part of the construction. The post office is all the way on the left. You can see that. There's street parking here. Obviously, it's a one-way street in this section. So our conceptual architectural rendering. And before we hit the architectural renderings, I do want to say the idea is to marry the form and function of the existing building with something a little bit more modern on top of it. Again, we're not trying to recreate something. We're trying to enhance something. And we're still working with the architects on color schemes and materials. The concept is that the brick building here would remain brick, just as you see it. The windows would remain the exact same size. They would just be new windows. We would likely stain or paint this brick to complement the materials above it. Go ahead, Rob. Okay, so there's the same view. This is again a kind of a stained first floor brick. We are enhancing that entrance. Actually, the address of this building is interesting. It's 108 West Wayne Avenue. The only door, there is no door fronting West Wayne Avenue. The door that you're seeing here as a potential entry faces west towards the library. So we would keep this and enhance this as an entrance for the first floor tenant, because this entrance is on grade. As Wade had discussed earlier, the east elevation that fronts on South Wayne Avenue is elevated 4 feet above the parking because it was a loading area. So the second floor here, we're trying to introduce a horizontal siding material. Not exactly sure exactly the material. It likely will be a metal type of material. with windows that, again, pay homage to the industrial nature of the building, the original building below. Currently, the landscaping out front is just grass, and we would look to really enhance that, as you see in this image.
You notice we'll also try to mimic the ground floor window pattern in the second floor to carry that industrial feel to the second level, so it doesn't look like a squat on top of an old building.
Okay, Rob. So this is the image looking west from South Wayne Avenue. You're looking at right now kind of a gate, a fence and a gate that goes into the property. Most of this area was always used as loading. It really wasn't used as a parking lot. The white overhead door that you see on the left was the last addition put onto this building. And it's that location where we would install our main decorative staircase and elevator to service both floors of the building from a ADA standpoint. You can see the loading dock wall straight ahead of you, which is about 4 feet up, and that's kind of a covered platform there. So trucks would back up to that, load and unload into an open air environment, and then go through a door either straight ahead, or there's another door off to the right. And we would bring the facade of the building out to the edge of that loading dock wall. And our goal would be to add a little greenery in front of that wall, and then also a little bit of greenery on the left-hand side where that red minivan is, that line of cars. We'd bring a line of greenery along that wall as well. And before you go on, well, you can see the connection there in between the post office and the sorting facility. Those two dock doors are the post office's property. They are not part of this building. Okay. So again, here's the elevation, the other elevation, where you see the retaining of the brick material in the original building. Because we have a zero lot line, meaning the loading dock connector between the post office and this sorting facility is physically attached to this building, and it would be enclosed with a fire-rated concrete block wall. The code does not allow us to add any additional windows on that first floor facade. You can see how we're carrying the second floor with the large windows, and then mirroring those windows on loading dock platform. And then the dark gray material on the left is the new main entrance elevator and main stair tower. You know, any of you who work in modern office buildings appreciate the ample windows that you get. Many of you who work in downtown areas, especially suburban downtown areas like Westchester, or a lot of the older buildings in Wayne, you don't get much window light. This is a tremendous amount of natural light in a building that nets out at the end about 8,000 square feet per floor. And again, we're enhancing this image. One of the things this image does not show is the greenery on the left-hand side in front of that white station wagon. And
Eli, also important to point out the ordinance doesn't, as you mentioned, zero lot line does not permit additional glazing. So we did a setback on that northern edge of the building to allow us the ability to bring that glazing into the equation and create a terrace area off of that. First of all, to create a more desirable office environment, but also because that's an elevation that has a direct sight line for the most part towards Lancaster Avenue, and we wanted to have a more attractive presence to the street.
Is that proposed to be a parapet wall on the second, where the second story is going to go? So that utility things like air conditioners and air handling and all that would be not visible?
Correct.
yes. No, nothing would be visible. The unit sizes would probably be, 5 and 7 ton units. They would be organized in the middle of the roof. And yes, that is a parapet wall. We always take, there's nothing worse than seeing a rendering and then having a building built and seeing an ugly air conditioning unit that wasn't shown on the rendering. So not only do I take offense to it, the tenants often take offense to it as well.
What's the total square footage of the building? They propose.
Yeah, go to the floor plans if you would, Rob. I have those listed here. Okay, so these are conceptual floor plans. First floor is on the bottom, second floor is on the top. The first floor footprint is about 8,800 square feet, and the second floor is about 8,500 square feet. You can see where the lobby and stair tower and elevator is. So you would come in that lobby at grade, 4 feet up, the elevator would stop at the first floor, where we would have a two-sided elevator. That we really, even though the first floor would technically have handicapped access from the West Wayne Avenue door, we just thought if we're putting an elevator in, we might as well make it stop at the first floor as well. You can see the location of a potential another stair tower. We are considering, as you saw in the rendering, that stair tower might go outside and just be a covered stair tower. When you're dealing with such small footprints, every square foot makes a big difference. And you can see where the location of the secondary stair tower is, kind of breaks up the flow of allowing, windows and offices on that western wall.
What it's going to be? I can't see the details. What's your estimate leasable space of the 18,000 square feet?
Well, the gross square footage, including the stair towers and elevator shaft, is about 18,900 square feet. So the leasable, net leasable area is about 17,377 square feet.
So where I'm getting at is parking. So how many parking spaces will you entail? I mean, that's, in my mind, that's.
Yeah, so parking is obviously the one of the two variances that we need. We have 14 on-site parking spaces, although we're hoping to maybe squeeze one more on there. And we would look, as your ordinance suggests, to use some of the on-street parking, both on West Wayne Avenue and the municipal lots that are south of the building. And even though the ordinance requires 4 spaces per 1,000 square feet, then I think there's a net out that you're allowed, which George can go into a little bit. But we would look to secure an agreement to use the municipal lots for a certain amount of overflow parking. The kind of building this is not going to lend itself to a call center or users that have a big wide open floor plan. We already have interest from a financial services firm for the second floor space, which is mostly larger offices and some support staff. So again, parking from our perspective will be through securing an agreement with these municipal lots. Also, obviously, the proximity of the train station is huge to these type of users as well, as support staff can come in and employees can come in.
We're also well along in discussions with a tenant to occupy the entire ground floor. It's a creative user, and they anticipate of their staff of approximately 25 that approximately 12 to 15 of them will use public transportation.
But even if you're using the ratio 4 spaces, which is kind of standard for every 1,000 square feet for suburban office, you're talking about, was it and assuming you have the 15 spaces in your surface lot, you're going to be looking for the township for some like 53, 54 spaces, plus or minus.
Well, we don't think we need all of those. We don't think I mean, I guess technically from a variance perspective, we have to ask for them, but I don't think we really need that many to secure that many additional spaces. But technically, you're right. That's exactly what the ordinance requires, 4 per thousand.
So how many, forgive me for taking up everyone's time, but I mean, while I have these thoughts going through my head, does anyone know how many spots there are in, or spaces in the municipal parking lot that's across the street from?
We have one of our folks on our call today is a traffic consultant, so he can address that one.
He's done some counts, which we'll go over with you, of the lots.
But this was operating as a postal facility. I think you mentioned that as many as 55 people work there. Where did they park?
You know, they parked probably on the street. You know, again, because the front of the lot was really for trucks and truck turnaround. So there really weren't any. There might have been a few spaces on the site when it was a postal facility. So I think there's a history of a non-conforming parking issue here, as there is in a lot of the North Wayne Avenue buildings. I recall when the Journal Register sold the old Mainline Times printing facility. I mean, I think there was 3 parking spaces or 4 parking spaces in the back alley, and it was a printing facility, and who knows where those folks parked, but again, the building got renovated, very nicely, and I think North Wayne Avenue and downtown Wayne, a long history of
You're breaking up again.
a lot of those buildings being traditionally being parked, but still, needing relief to be able to redevelop them.
Right. I have a question for
Okay.
Kevin.
Rob, you want to keep going?
There's a question for Mr. Lord.
Yeah, I guess, Kevin, I know that one of the variances, one of the requests is regarding using the first floor as office space.
Yes.
And I was curious if you could tell us, what is the zoning purpose for not allowing typically, I guess, at least in this area, of not allowing the first floor to be used as office space?
I couldn't tell you the extent of what the intent was when that code provision was developed, but it basically allows retail only on the first floor with then a mix of uses above it. So that's the way the WBOD was adopted a few years ago. I was not employed at the township when that ordinance was created, so I don't really understand or know the intent as to why that provision was worded the way it was.
Okay. Is it a commonplace provision these days in ordinances, or is it something of an antique?
Oh, I don't know. It's hard to tell. Every municipality has reasons for why they word things for special districts. I know that this WBOD section of the code went through a lot of public meetings. So there was some thought behind that provision, but I couldn't tell you exactly what that was.
Okay, thanks.
John, I might be able to shed a little light on that. Downtown Westchester, again, a perfect example, has had a similar provision in the code. And the reason was the feeling that an office user, a law firm with their windows, the blinds closed all day long, as you were walking down a street to, window shopping or shopping and seeing boutiques and hairdressers and, places to buy merchandise, being broken up by non-retail, non-traditional retail uses. And candidly, on North Wayne Avenue, that might actually have some validity, but South Wayne Avenue, especially on this side of the street, there's no continuity at all of retail uses. There are no retail uses on this side of the street. I mean, if you take the post office out, which I guess is a quasi retail use, but for this building and the way this building is set back, it really makes no sense. You wouldn't want retail here. Retail wouldn't thrive here. And especially now, coming out of this virus situation, it'll be interesting to see how many of the North Wayne Avenue businesses survive, retail businesses survive this.
Yeah, I think, and while referencing the Wayne Business Overlay District, that also identified this called this out as a unique location that they thought potentially accommodate greater density that was currently being utilized here, anticipating that density be more beneficial and complementary to the townscape.
John,
Yes.
I just remember when we were doing that overlay district, it was really hedged towards the mixed use, so that it wouldn't be all offices and all retail. You know, my concern on this is just parking. I mean, we deal with parking in that Wayne area all the time now, and he's looking. I don't know where he's going to put how many cars he's going to need. Let's be conservative and say 45 more parking spaces someplace. I mean, I think that's something we really got to deal with.
As a West Wayne resident, West Wayne Avenue resident, I'll say that there are metered spaces that run from the post office all the way up until West Wayne is two ways. So it's a full block of metered parking that's rarely overused.
Yeah,
And I walk around there all the time. So there's at least 25 metered spaces, I think, along that, right adjacent to this facility.
Yeah, hey, Matt.
Yeah.
Matt, I think that the issue more is the fact that if it's offices, they're coming in there all day, as opposed to retail, which are flipping. So you know, you're looking at these 46 spaces that technically could be there from 9 to 5.
but we believe it's significant.
That's kind of the other issue with the mixed-use area with retail on the first floor. You know, now you're saying these 46 spaces are going to be taken by potentially people that are going to be there from 9 to 5.
We do have our traffic consultant, when we get to that, can go over his findings. He's done some parking counts. And I will also ask the board, the commission, to keep in mind, you know, this is in the special use area of the Wayne Business Overlay District. There's very few uses that are permitted. So what we have here is a bit of a white elephant building. It's in poor shape. I don't think anybody really thinks that it would be suitable for retail. So this is an opportunity to upgrade that building, bring in the office users, which will support the rest of the village. And I just don't think it's realistic to apply the, the 4 per 1,000, which is more of a suburban office requirement, parking requirement, to a village in the office in the village. So that's the pitch we wanted to make. You know, it'll allow this white elephant to get renovated nicely so, and be a compatible use, a use that will support the rest of Wayne. And Frank Tavani will go over. We do think there's some opportunity for parking.
And George, furthermore, as a resident of the township who lives approximately 3 minutes from the site, I would say that majority of that parking strain does occur after hours on weekdays and on evenings, when we will not be occupying those spaces. I don't think it's that. I've never found it difficult to find parking during the daytime in downtown Wayne on a weekday.
Okay. Any other questions on what we've talked about so far? Or should we move over to the hear from the traffic consultant? So George, go ahead. Let's hear from Mr. Travani.
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Rob, are we going to go to my slides?
Yep, I'll skip down there.
So the average parking rate for office uses, even in suburban areas, is actually closer to 2.39 spaces per 1,000 square feet. You can see this on page 2 of my report, pretty much dead center as shown on the screen right now. This means that we probably have a parking demand closer to 40 parking spaces. And even though we're only providing 14, that means our delta is closer to 25 to 30 spaces, not 40 or more. And there are ample on-street parking opportunities as well as municipal lot parking opportunities during a typical weekday within a short 5-minute walk of the site. I personally surveyed these locations on Wednesday and Thursday, thankfully, before the governor shut down schools on Friday, the 13th of March. As you can see at the bottom of this slide, I conveniently and luckily was able to survey spaces on Wednesday, the 11th, Thursday, the 12th, at all times of midday weekday peaks, 10:30, 12:30, 11:30, and 1:30. And I broke up the opportunities for parking into 6 different zones. And if we could just skip ahead to the next slide temporarily, and then we'll come back. You can see in yellow, these are the zones that I surveyed relative to the site. Zone 1 is the municipal lot, which is near Bellevue and Lancaster, between the Wawa and the Trek bicycle store. This is a rather large lot that provides up to 10-hour parking at a nominal rate of 50 cents per hour. Next, I surveyed the municipal lot closest to the regional rail station, where most of the parking is not 10 hours, but there is some 10-hour parking that's designated. And then I crossed to the south side of Lancaster Avenue, closest to the site. As you heard earlier, there is ample on-street parking along West Wayne Avenue between Wayne and I believe it's Bloomingdale. That's zone 5. That's again 10-hour maximum parking at 50 cents per hour. Another municipal lot is very close to the site, which is zone 4. And then there's even some free street parking, including zone 6 and zone 3. And zone 6, I only surveyed the side of the street closest to the site. In my experience walking around there, there was also ample on-street parking that was available on the west side of that street, but I ignored that because there was so much parking already available. We can go back to slide 11 to the table. I summarized all the empty spaces that were available in each of these zones at the bottom of the page. And by far, most of the parking is in that first municipal lot near the bicycle shop. Approximately half of the empty parking spaces were consistently found there on each day at each of the 4 different times I surveyed. However, even if you just look only at zones 4 and 5, zone 4 was the municipal lot near the site and zone 5 was the on-street parking along West Wayne, that alone should be more than enough to address the potential shortfall that's predicted based on ITE's estimate of peak traffic and what we're supplying. And none of this takes into consideration the fact that we have more than ample rail and bus opportunities for the office users to benefit from. We have the SEPTA bus route 106 and 204, and of course the regional rail, all within about 1,250 feet of the site, which is about a 5-minute walk. Even applying a modest 10 or 15% reduction for patronage of those lines would bring us probably down to just one of these zones being ample to supply the potential shortfall. So that's what I found.
If I could add something, Mr. Chairman. So unbeknownst to the developer and probably this commission, there is a plan to use the South Wayne Municipal Lot as a stormwater management facility. And as part of that, that lot would get reconfigured and we would actually lose a few spaces. So the lot that's proposed, and this project still has yet to go before the board of commissioners, has 55 spaces in it. Under a previous agreement with the Radnor Memorial Library in the existing lot, which I assume would carry over this one, they also are guaranteed 11 spaces for their staff. That was part of what occurred when the building was renovated and expanded. So I'm not sure how that affects things. I do agree with Mr. Tavani that the lot is underutilized, but it will shrink slightly and we still have to live up to our commitment to the library.
And again, the good news is it looks like much of the shortfall could be addressed with West Wayne Avenue alone. And then there's the added attraction of Bloomingdale Avenue, which is still within a quarter-mile walk and actually has the added benefit of free street parking at present. Another thing to keep in mind, obviously, is that there aren't that many office uses in the area. So this is actually a very complementary use which would not compete with the existing retail users. Their parking demands tend to be more on evenings and on weekends, which is when this use would be, basically at a nadir.
Okay. Any, does the Board of Commissioners have any questions, comments? One of the things I want to mention is I think that this is a very unusual situation. This sort of a building left vacant in the middle of Wayne, built for a very specific purpose, which of course was the sorting and delivery of mail. I think any of us who've lived in the area, and that's probably all of us for any period of time, can remember back to when it really was very industrial with a lot of trucks mail trucks constantly going in and out, in and out, in and out. And of course, the workers who worked there had to park someplace. And I don't remember there being a lot of parking there. Somehow it all seemed to work. If this is the highest and best use and that you can make out of a building like this one, which is an odd building, not designed for retail, really not designed for office without major renovations, it seems to my way of thinking that this is a pretty good plan. Now, that's not to say it's perfect. I mean, they still, if this thing gets approved, they've got to come back and go through the whole land use process again. But and I wouldn't have anything negative about it to say going to the zoning hearing board. I mean, my position usually is if there's some clear land use issue that arises here that we think we should talk to the zoning hearing board about, well, by all means we should. I don't really see anything here. Footprint's not changing. I don't think there's going to be a huge difference in storm water, but all these things can be analyzed later. But from strictly a zoning standpoint, given the unusual aspect of this building, I don't see where there's any negatives that I can associate with it, and that I would recommend that we send a message to the zoning hearing board that we don't have any land use or subdivision planning type reservations about this project.
I just add my 2 cents. My concern is the parking. I know people that work across the street in the other building, and I know what a hassle it is. Every 45 minutes, you got to feed the meter, or every hour you have to feed the meter. And so from a practical standpoint, if I was working there, what would I do? Where I don't want to, get tickets from the Radnor traffic or Radnor Police Traffic Department, I would probably be looking to park in the parking lot by the library. My concern is that will there be any spillover or people just take advantage of the part or the spots at the library? There's few precious spots where normally if you go there during 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock in the morning, most of those spots are taken. Or if there's something going on, some event going on at the library, not only are all the spots taken, but a number of the spots are taken in the municipal lot. So that's my concern. I think the design or the use of the building, I don't have a problem, but it's just I just think the parking is a fundamental problem.
Are there any other comments? Because then I think we should. I'm looking at my email, whether or not, I guess now's the time we should take public comment if the board doesn't have any other questions or comments to make at this particular time. Okay, so Steve, is there any public comment that you're aware of?
No, sir, I've not received any emails to that effect.
Okay. All right, so would anyone like to make a motion regarding what our recommendation ought to be to the zoning hearing board? What I'm gathering is that, please, anybody jump in and tell me if my characterization is wrong or incomplete, that as to the building itself, the proposed second floor, and the use that's to which it would be put, no one really seems to have a serious objection to that. It is the parking that people are concerned about. Does that fairly summarize it?
Well, I don't think everyone's concerned about the parking, John. I mean, I live on West Wayne Avenue, and I don't see this as a parking issue at all. I really don't. I think there's a lot of areas off West Wayne Avenue where there aren't not meters, but there's parking available. I think people they can search around and find it. It's the middle of Wayne. They can find a place to park. I just think it's a bit of a straw man to suggest that parking should kill this project. I just don't agree at all.
I don't disagree. The parking to me is not, given the nature of this building and what it was used for before and how many people worked in there before it turned into more or less of a derelict, and the length of time it's been sitting there, because that's one indication that it's a difficult building to use. Some compromises are going to have to be made in order to integrate this building into a really useful part of the village, as opposed to just a lump that's sitting there from another age. And that's why I agree with you, Matt. I'm not that concerned about the parking aspect of it, and I'm not sure you can deny some of the zoning relief that's sought purely on the parking issue.
Hey, John.
So, yes.
I think saying that parking kills the deal isn't necessarily what I'm saying. I just think that most operations that come to us in that specific area of West Wayne, whether it be commercial or office or retail or whatever, most of the applications have a specific plan as to where their people are going to park. And I don't see that plan here. I see, well, there's parking on the street, let them go find it. I don't think that's what our job is to tell the people, go find a place to park. That's the job of the applicant, to say, here's our plan where they can park. Whether we buy spaces here or we know they're going to be there, that's where my problem is. I don't think we should say to the people, well, they're on the street, go find them. That's just,
isn't it?
But again, I don't think it's a deal killer. I just think that they should have come up with some kind of a plan for us to give us a little comfort.
Well, do I understand, or maybe I do not understand, that because this building is sitting in a special use zone, that the parking requirements aren't the same as they are elsewhere? Am I wrong about that?
They said it's 4 spaces per thousand square feet of usable space. I mean,
I did hear that. I did hear that. I'm wondering if that's what actually applies within a special.
Kevin, is that it, or Steve? Anyone? Is that the regulation for parking?
Hello?
For the staff?
I'm going to look into that to double check.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I mean, we can make a recommendation that we like the building. We think it's a great concept and a good concept, however you want to say it. And then leave it on the zoning hearing board's lap to figure out what to do about the parking.
That's a good job. I agree with you, John. But, I think it's a great building for use. I believe that. But I think it's up to the applicant to come up, when they go in front of zoning, and come up with a plan. This is where we think our people are going to park.
Well, this is why it gets run by us first. I mean, we can make that suggestion to them, and then they can do whatever they feel that they need to do before or while when they make their presentation to the zoning hearing board.
Listen, that is very much our intention. You can't you can't spend the money we're going to spend to renovate this building and charge the rent that we're going to need to charge and tell the tenant, oh yeah, just go find parking spaces. So, there's a market reality to this. That we know that we need to make some arrangements for some additional off-street parking. And the reality of a situation like this, some employees will just park where they find the easiest parking spaces. I mean, I live 4 blocks from the Malvern train station, right off of Monument Avenue. There's no meters, and it's free. And people gravitate to Monument Avenue instead of paying $1 to park for the day in the lot at the train station. But there's a certain number of employees in this building that will require us to say, hey, we've secured 10 spots here, 8 spots there. That's the nature of being able to lease this building in reality. So we do fully intend to attempt to secure on a contractual basis or number of parking spaces.
Okay. So would anyone like to make a motion?
Kevin, were you going to say something, Kevin?
Apologize that there is no, I'm not seeing any special regulations for parking for this use in the special use area of the WBOD. So it would be as the parking requirements for the rest of the WBOD, 1 per 250 square feet or as mentioned earlier, 4 per 1,000.
Okay, I'll make a motion if you want.
Okay, please.
I move that we accept the plan, but we recommend that the zoning board require the applicant to have some type of parking plan in place.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Looks like it's unanimous. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank
Thank you very much for your time, folks.
Be safe,
You're
everybody.
welcome.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is Villanova Sear Building expansion. And Nick, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Speak up a little bit.
I'm good. Can you hear me, I hope? Guys?
Nick, where'd you
Can you
go?
hear me? Oh, there, hold on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Just turn the sound up a little bit. We can't see you though. Not that that's important.
Let me start my video. There you go.
There you go. Now you're in business.
We set?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, this is the Sear building. You actually saw it before prior to it going to zoning. It's the Center for Engineering, Education, and Research. The purpose of this addition is an addition to an existing building that was constructed in the 1990s. The purpose is to consolidate the College of Engineering with all the necessary laboratories into a single building for its current students and staff. We're not increasing number of students, not increasing number of staff. It's just a consolidation of other areas on campus into this building. Back in 1995, a variance was granted by the Zoning Hearing Board to construct the building, which exceeded the height requirement of the code, as well as the front yard setback requirement of the code on Spring Mill Road. Approval was granted by the Planning Commission for the land development. Zoning Hearing Board also granted it. Approval was granted by the Board of Commissioners. This is an addition that will continue that height of the building at 51 feet, the same was granted previously. There's no further increase in the front yard setback. In fact, the addition complies with the front yard setback requirement of 120 feet. The addition's 146 feet away. It was, you saw it on December the 11th of 2019 and unanimously recommended approval of it. Zoning Board agreed and also unanimously approved the plan. That complies with all zoning requirement, although there's no increase in enrollment or faculty. The Radnor zoning code requires 123 parking spaces for this addition. And that is being provided, basically it's been provided in the law school parking addition to that structure. Actually, a permit's already been received back in March for that addition, and the parking spaces for this project will be located in that addition as well as around the existing building. We have a couple people on the call here tonight. Kevin Smith of Ramza will present the site plan, describe the project. Mike Kissinger and I will discuss the township consultant letters, and we have a couple waiver requests that we'll mention. One thing to note here is even with the COVID crisis, this is an important, crucial project for the university. They intend to proceed with this project, even though considering the current situation. So I'll turn it over to Kevin. Kevin, hopefully you're on there. Kevin Smith, and you can describe for the board what this project's about.
Great, thank you, Nick. I'm Kevin Smith, Robert A. M. Stern Architects in New York, and we're working with BLT Architects out of Philadelphia. Alex, my audiovisual assistant today. She's so if she can share screen. We wanted to share with you first, or the next slide, really the reasons for this building. So this is.
Sorry, Kevin, I'm having an issue.
Okay, I know it. But we were asked to really look at the entire future.
I have a question before you get that going. Did I understand that the parking requirement will be satisfied by an addition to the law school's parking garage?
That's correct, John. There's some parking around the building, but also it will be by another level in the law school parking garage. So it will be a new addition.
But that's not on the plans.
That is, it is on the plans if that's where the parking will be located.
Okay, all right, thanks. Okay, seem like you got your thing working here.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
Sorry about that.
We were asked to really look at the space needs and of the entire College of Engineering, and I hope I speak correctly. We've learned a lot, and one of the things we learned is that the pedagogy of engineering has really changed, and this is not just at Villanova, but particularly at Villanova. It's no longer really people sitting in lectures. It's a lot more hands-on. And so it has created the need for a considerably a larger amount of research space, particularly research labs. And this is not merely for graduate students. You might imagine that graduate students are the ones doing research. At Villanova, the goal is to have 75% of undergraduates be doing across the board, doing some kind of research. And so with that additional research lab space, which has been benchmarked looking at other research universities by our lab planner, it needs more collaboration and study space. So we've created that too, and the need to consolidate the faculty to be near their labs. Now, a small portion of these labs are now located in other buildings on campus, as Nick alluded to, though most are in sort of virtually uninhabitable basements. They're not really ideal. So the real goal is to get improved research space, both for people and for equipment, which is much needed. And the solution we came up with is to really leverage that existing building built in the 1990s and be able to take advantage of the space and footprint that it occupies and expand that, and includes even taking advantage of some of the mechanical space that now exists in its basement. So to really limit the impact on the rest of the campus. Alex will just show you what this looks like in the next slide. So this is just seeing the center of the campus. We'll recognize the church to the right and Tolentino Hall. And so what we've really done is to wrap this new extension around the existing building. Thank you. And maintain the same height, but also it actually the eave line is a little lower than the existing building because we're using the pitched roofs in order to make sure we screen all of the mechanical equipment, including some of the mechanical equipment that is now on the existing building. And you'll see later, it's a little hard to see in this picture, of the wing that is closer to Spring Mill is what's visibly 3 stories above grade. as opposed to the rest of the building, which is at that same level.
Let's move that photograph or picture.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I'm asking if we can move on to the next one.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. So the next one is just the footprint of the existing sear in that, which has a funny addition, which is in the white. This is its current footprint, and then the extensions that come out and wrap around a sort of atrium space. We're using most of the footprint of the existing parking that surrounds the current building and pushing that out slightly and correcting it so that is, as was mentioned, a portion of its parking requirement. And we're also creating better pedestrian links to the neighboring Tolentino Hall around really a safer way to move and respecting this big great lawn that faces Lancaster Avenue. We go to the next slide. We thought we'd just show you a few views of kind of before and after. This is being outside of Tolentino Hall before and after. You can see that some of the building actually screens a bit of the current building. And then if you go to the next one, this is the building scene from current building scene from Spring Mill Road, what is now there with the building. And then the next slide shows the new facility, which I think provides an attractive stone clad facade. This is somewhat nicer than what you see currently. And then the next pair of images is what most people will see driving down Lancaster Avenue, the existing sear, including, and then it's the new building, which is, I think you can see, screens some of the mechanical equipment that's now there. It's a main facade, and it's in keeping with the other university buildings that are along there. So then, just to quickly run you through these are the two-dimensional elevations. That same view on the top, looking east onto the slope, which is a reality of the ground, and on the other side, the spring mill with the left-hand side, the existing building, and the three bays of windows on the right is the new extension to that. And then the next and final slide really is just the other two elevations. There is seen, in ways that you actually are unable to see because you can't get far away enough to see them. But this is looking toward Tolentino at the top, and then we call it the south elevation. It really faces southwest on the bottom. And we're very excited by this building. We think it is.
Don, I was going to go over the review letters now, if you like.
Very good.
All right, so Mike Kissinger is from Pannoni's the project engineer. First, I'm looking at the Gannett Fleming letter, and I'll mention the waivers we're looking for. Most of them are pretty basic. The first waiver listed is requesting that this be a preliminary final plan instead of having to do separate preliminary and final plans. As we mentioned, this project was already approved, or actually the main building was already approved back in the 90s. The infrastructure is all in, and all we're doing is really asking for an addition to this building. Therefore,
Okay. Well, we'll revisit that at the end of our review of this and the other report.
And the other waivers were the maximum sheet size, which you've seen before. Obviously, when it gets recorded, it'll be recorded on the proper sheet size, which is.
Well, does the staff have any issue with that? I mean, it seems.
With preliminary final, Mr. Chairman, no, I do not.
No, I'm talking about number 2 on the list under
on Gannett Fleming's letter.
Yeah, whether, or not, you know, and the sheet, the size of the plan sheet size, 24 inches, 34 inches, I mean, reducing that, I mean, do you have any, I mean, really, does the staff have any problem? If they don't, fine.
I don't have any issues with any of the waivers that are being requested.
No problem,
No, we
sir.
talked about this in a brief staff meeting last week, John, and we don't have any issues with any of the waivers.
Okay, so 1 through 4 and 5, there's no problem with those waivers.
With the caveat that, and I don't know if you want to unmute yourself, Roger, but that for number 3, with the not showing the features within 500 feet.
Yes.
As long as they locate on-lot water and sewer facilities, is that correct?
Yeah, and they're already shown on the plan, just
Okay.
not extending out to 500 feet.
And that's a pretty typical waiver we get,
Yes.
waiver request we get.
Okay, so 1 through 4, I'm sorry, 1 through 5 are okay.
And actually, everything else will comply.
Yeah, so the sewer facility, just for the record, okay, Nick, the sewer facility planning will comply. The zoning, of course, you've already gotten that. Subdivision and land development items 1 through 8 will comply.
Yes.
And then under stormwater, items 1 through 11 will comply.
Yes.
And then finally, the sanitary sewer, one item under sanitary sewer, that's will comply.
Yes.
All right.
And similarly on the Gilmore report, they're all will complies.
Okay. So we're referring to the May 28th Gilmore report. C, D, looks like there's 2 Ds, there's general comments. D is subdivision land development, C is waivers requested. So everything that's on the Gilmore report is will comply. And as Roger has told us many times, before the grading permit is issued, all those things have got to be checked off, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Any comments from any
Go
members?
back to the parking issue, please.
Sure.
Nick, how many parking spaces, how big's the addition?
The addition is mainly laboratory space and some offices. The additional office space, I believe, is 26,595. But there's also 2,158 is being demolished. And as a result, that requires 122 parking spaces. And that's what we're providing, as well as it talks about the code provides for your largest assembly room. And we're basically going from a 144 to 140 assembly room. So we already have provided for that largest assembly room, and it's just in 1 additional space as a result of it. So that brings it to 123. Then we're removing some spaces. So we're losing a net of 10. And so we need 133.
And that 133 is mostly coming out of the parking lot.
That was a good one. Even if I could follow you, it was a great one. No, I guess what concerns me is when you were doing the law and the law building and the additional parking you put there, and then when you did the residence on Lancaster Avenue, I thought you used some of the parking spaces in the law building facility to help with the residence halls, even including the new additional multi-one you put in front of the music center. Do you remember, Steve, what they did there? What was the configuration on the parking? I thought they used some of those spaces up on the north end of campus.
Charlie, they're adding to the existing parking deck at the law office. So they're adding those additional spaces with a new deck. Okay. And on the plans, there's a chart that tracks the parking.
Yeah, we're adding 197 spaces to the a new deck to the law school parking garage. And so we're adding 197 and we're providing 133.
Okay, so they're okay with Roger? They're okay with parking?
Yes.
Okay. I just, they keep adding things and sometimes you can't keep up with them. Even the smooth talking Nick sometimes.
Thank you, Charlie.
We make them keep track of all that stuff.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the members of the commission? I guess it's time to move on to public comment. I'm looking at my my email. I don't see anything. Steve, do you have anything?
No, Mr. Chairman, I have not received any public comment emails either.
Okay, well, I guess our feelings should be hurt, but that's okay. Can I have a motion, please?
Hey, can I just ask one quick question? So
Sure.
getting in and out of that garage on the north end of the campus, so it's an additional 197 spots. Is there any concerns about ingress and egress? I guess since that's going to be on, was it 320?
Yeah.
That's so. Is there going to be any issues getting in and getting out?
We already received a permit for that from the township, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, and Kevin Kachansky also weighed in during our conference, and he agreed that parking complies and we meet the requirements.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So can I have a motion, please?
Okay, I guess I'm going to make the motion again. I move that we accept the plan, the 4 waivers to be granted, and the remaining will be all comply. Did I say that correct, Roger or Steve?
It's 5 waivers.
5 waivers.
5 waivers? Okay, 5.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6. Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate that. Thank you, Nick. Did a good job as always.
Can you repeat your motion, please?
I move we accept the applicants. He's going to comply. We're going to give him the 5 waivers that he requested, and the remaining waivers will comply. So it's only the 5 that we're giving him a waiver on.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Is there any old business? Is there any new business? And yes, do I hear anything?
No, sir.
Okay, so then I guess we're adjourned.
I move we adjourn.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you all.
Be safe.